Welcome everyone to the Trinidad and Tobago Film Festival 2021 Q&As. I am Julian Neves and we want to thank everyone for joining us today. This year our full program will be screened online. We're fully virtual and we're from September 22nd to the 28th. And we also have our new media exhibition. You can check that out online. And of course, you could also check out all our films. It's at watch.eventive.org/TTFF21. So make sure head there, check out the films. And we'd also like to thank all of our sponsors for TTF 2021. We've got NGC as our signature sponsor this year. We also have leading sponsorship from Shell, Trinidad and Tobago, and also Republic Bank Limited. And as well, we also have contributing and supporting sponsorship from NLCB and Sport and Culture Fund. All right, so today I have with me two documentary filmmakers. We have Ramin Israqi Yazdi. How did I do? I did well?
Pretty good. Yeah.
Pretty good.
Yes,
he is the director of the documentary Variety. And we also have Ida Duz, is the director of the documentary New Light, the Rijksmuseum and Slavery. Welcome to you both.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
Yes. All right, Raman, I want to start with you. Watching the documentary, I saw my boy Kimchi, Andrew Fung from Kim's Convenience, talking about the shoe collection. Tell me about that whole connection. How did that happen?
So Andrew and I are actually pretty good friends. Andrew Fung, before his fame and glory in Kim's Convenience, and now a brand new show that's coming to CBC Canada that will definitely find its way to Netflix at some point, called something the Burbs, Rockin' the Burbs, King of the Burbs. I can't remember. But me and him had a sketch variety show, in a comedy show in Western Canada. So we met there. I was a showrunner and the director and lead writer. So I actually brought him on, and this was before Kim's Convenience. So I always bug him that he's famous because of me, because they scoped him out there. That's not true. He was on his way. So I brought him into the film because the name of the documentary is Variety, and you can't talk about variety without talking about some of the good things about variety, and some of the brilliant things that are a part of our human nature is to seek out variety, especially in arts and culture, in design, in aesthetic beauty. So I knew, because we were friends, I knew about his shoe collection. So I asked him if he wanted to chat about it. And he was actually in my previous documentary as well, about something slightly different, but on the same curve. So he was his whole aspect is some of the good things about variety, but as you will hear in the film, variety, the bulk of it leads to a lot of negative things, and there's a need to curb that human need for variety, because variety leads to a lot of waste, basically.
All right, and as you're mentioning that and talking about aesthetics, I noticed there are a few supermarket scenes, there's that blurring effect. I know we have to do some of that for trademark stuff, but also it was kind of an intimidating effect.
It was.
On purpose?
I mean, this is a low budget film. So we couldn't get any clearances on anything, obviously. So the majority of that effect was to, like you said, blur out some trademarks. But the initial name of the documentary when I started writing it was Variety Vortex. So I wanted to give those scenes a little vortex vibe, like as if you're falling into this weird void. The fact that there's so much variety in consumer products leads to this confusion in consuming as well. Consumers are less satisfied with the products they choose because there's too much variety in the world. When there's 3 things to choose from, you pick something, you go home, and your variety utility level's at 90. But if there's 30 things to choose from, you pick something, you go home, all of a sudden your utility level drops to 60 because you're unsure if you got the right thing or not. So it doesn't just lead to waste, but it also leads to consumer confusion and the lack of enjoyment. So that effect was kind of to mimic that, right? The confusion confusion and the haziness when you're walking down these aisles and aisles and aisles of products that don't really need to exist.
Well, it was quite effective. So
Thank you.
Good job there. And I noticed there was a discussion about the cognitive bandwidth, and you spoke about your own experience with trying to get all these toilets, and there were so many and so forth. How do consumers, is it even possible to conserve your cognitive bandwidth so you don't end up reaching at the end and picking up a bunch of unnecessary stuff?
Yeah, it is. It just requires a little bit of strategy. Unfortunately, it's not like it was, even 10 years ago, 30 years ago, where you'd go into a store, you'd have faith that the products you're choosing are healthy and good. Now you're required to do research and you're required to know things, and sometimes it's overwhelming. And like you said, your cognitive bandwidth gets to zero after going through all these aisles, and then you make poor decisions. There's stuff we can get into. We don't have much time, but basically the thing that I realized at the end, and in all of my films, I don't want to just talk about the bad things. I want to suggest some possibilities of curbing those bad things. So as an individual, the one thing you can do is you can find yourself a curator, and a curator can come in the form of a holistic local supplier or store that does a lot of the research for you, right? That instead of maybe 10 types of apples, gets 2 types of local apples. So you go into the store, you don't have 10 things to choose from, you have 2 things to choose from, but you're already content that the store is at a certain quality and they've done their research and they've kind of made those decisions for you. So that's one way around it. And then to make a couple of like simple choices, like for me, zero waste was a big thing, right? So now I only shop at zero waste stores, and that limits the variety that I can choose, which actually leads to, again, a happier consuming life.
Of course. And well, you mentioned zero waste stores. I'm not aware of any in Trinidad or even in the Caribbean. So what do you do when you don't have places that actually, provide, this kind of system?
Yeah, that's a good question. So the focus of my film was my environment, and a lot of my documentary work revolves around a question I want to ask or a behavior I want to change in myself, and then I make a film about it and try to do that. So the focus of the film is really on North American consumption, and as we know, consumption in North America and in European nations is on another tier. It's absolutely ridiculous at this point, which has led to the amount of waste that these countries produce. In places like the Caribbean or places where there's less suppliers that have maybe an ideology behind it.
Sorry to bring it in. Let's see, we're running on a little low. But
sorry. So long story short, you guys are already kind of ahead of the game in that variety is less than it is in places like North America. And some people might see that as a bad thing. I see that as a good thing. You're not overwhelmed with 1,000 types of sugary cereals. You might have 10 to choose from, but have a strategy. Basically, when you're going shopping, have a strategy. Don't idle around. Know exactly what you want and go get it, and then kind of stick to a bit of routine. You find a cereal that's healthy and good. Stick to that, and you only have to research it once, and then you purchase it every time you need cereal, right? So research basically.
Sure, thank you. I think we're a little short for time, but the main thing I wanted to ask is something came out in the documentary where people were saying this is slavery, this was in the past. What would you say to somebody say, this was in the past? What would you respond to somebody like that? Kind of move on from it.
You're asking me this question?
No, that was the responses to the exhibition itself.
Yeah, well, the exhibition was very well received, but when people ask me about the films I do on these historical topics, I always like to say that, it's the history, of course, But in fact, I'm doing a film about present day society, like how we live together now, and how that all came about, that we live together. For example, for the Netherlands, we have so many people from the Caribbean living here, and facing discrimination and racism. So I think it's not about the past. Of course, in a way, it's about the past. Slavery is long abolished, but there's so little knowledge, there's so little education on it. So I think it's important to do a film like this, and the exhibition was very well received. Yeah.
Okay.
Of course, because of COVID, the museum was closed for months, so they had a late start. And but when they opened in I think in June, it was very, very well attended.
All right, I'm glad to hear that. All right, sorry, I think I give Robin a little too much of your time, but so we have to wrap up. But folks, thank you everyone for joining us for the Q&A. Make sure you can still catch these films. Go and check them out, and do check out ttfilmfestival.com website. You can find information to buy all the tickets and check out the films. And Ida, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Welcome. Bye.